If we're descended from apes, why aren't they evolving before our eyes? This is a question that everyone has probably heard and maybe even asked themselves. Watch this video to the end and you will know the answers to all these questions. And support us by liking and subscribing to the channel, make some tea, and off we go. It is worth admitting that until recently it was difficult to answer directly. But that was until recently. A group of scientists have officially declared that some species of apes have evolved and entered the Stone Age, which means that in the next few minutes we're going to revisit the theory of evolution. More specifically, we're going to talk about the discovery, tilt the scales even further in its favor, and develop perhaps the most important argument of its opponents. Make yourselves comfortable, we're about to begin. First, a general reminder of what evolution is, who invented it, and what it eats. Even the ancient Greek philosophers believed that living organisms could change due to one circumstance or another. Later, this theory was interpreted differently, but in the Middle Ages it declined due to the dominance of the Church, which did not recognize any possibility of creation except with the help of God. Moreover, the official position was that man had nothing in common with the animal world. The theory of evolution was formulated in a familiar form by Charles Darwin in his book The Origin of Species, published in 1859. It is considered the foundation of evolutionary biology. Darwin hypothesized that all existing species arose from a common ancestor as a result of branching patterns of evolution. He assumed that any given population would either evolve or die out over time. He called this process natural selection. In other words, a biological species can only evolve as a result of constant adaptation to changing environmental conditions. At the same time, Darwin did not rule out the possibility that one or more common ancestors had been created by God. For the sake of clarity, let's put Darwin's theory on the shelf. Each species is sufficiently fertile that the surviving offspring ensure population growth. Even if there are periodic fluctuations, the populations remain roughly the same size. Resources, especially food, are limited but stable over time. As a result, there is competition among offspring for food and thus for survival. At the same time, different individuals in a population differ from each other, and much of this variation can be inherited. Those individuals that are better able to adapt to their environment have a better chance of surviving, reproducing and passing on their hereditary traits to future generations, which is what natural selection is all about. From this we can conclude that, over time, populations will change to better adapt to their environment. Eventually, the accumulation of these changes will no longer produce a new population, but a new species. Darwin's doctrine became known as Darwinism and, together with genetics, now forms the basis of modern synthetic evolutionary theory. The theory of evolution has been recalled, and let's get back to our apes. Archaeologists have discovered that the population of Capuchin monkeys living in the Sierra de Guevara National Park in Brazil has been living in the Stone Age for 3,000 years. And not just living, but improving, with each new generation using skills to survive. What happened? And why is it so important to modern science? And to the theory of evolution in particular? Let's get to the bottom of this. Scientists have found places with lots of rocks with characteristic mechanical damage. This suggests that the Capuchin monkeys used them to crack open the shell of the nut and get to the flesh. The monkeys placed a nut on a wide, flat pebble and then used another pebble to split the same nut. So what do you think? They took a stone and hit the nut. What's the big deal? The big deal is that this is about adaptation and a kind of evolutionary breakthrough. Instead of trying to gnaw this nut, the Capuchins found an easier and faster way to get food. You could say that these stones are the most primitive of tools, and these tools were only modified 300 years ago. The stones have become smaller, probably because the Capuchin's diet has changed. This means that these primates already have their own archaeological history, although it may not seem like much. However, it is worth remembering that the first tools of man and his ancestors were just as primitive and only reached a higher level after hundreds of 0 or even 1 millions or even billions of years of evolution. Our distant and remote ancestors also started with unprocessed stones and only later began to process, simplify and increase the efficiency of their use. And then they moved on to bone, bronze and iron. So it is our modern Capuchin heroes who can shed light on the first evolutionary steps taken by the predecessors of modern man. Nevertheless, for a long time it was believed that the use of tools was a unique human trait, distinguishing our ancestors from other primates. However, it is not worth expecting Capuchin monkeys to start making hammers out of these stones, or even to start extracting metals. Scientists don't know whether the evolution of these stones will continue. Stone Age will continue, repeating the path of human ancestors, or will generally go its own way. What's the most important thing? We are not sure that Capuchins are fundamentally unique. It is possible that there are and have been hundreds of species in the Stone Age in terms of their evolution. We just haven't observed them. And anyway, some monkeys did learn how to bang on rocks. Chance doesn't prove any of this. You might say that you have to disagree. There's evidence of primates using such tools beyond the Brazilian Capuchin. Take the Panamanian Capuchins, for example. They also use stones to crack nuts, and the instances of use are by no means isolated. During 205 days of video trapping, Capuchins came to the car park with stones on 164 days. It's not an isolated behavior, is it? Let's try to understand what causes this behavior. Scientists distinguish three conditions in the life of Capuchin monkeys that are thought to have influenced the evolution of these primates. The first condition is the terrestrial lifestyle of monkeys. The second is the relatively low predation pressure. Finally, the third and most important condition is limited resources compared to mainland populations. It was these three factors that most likely motivated the Capuchins to change. Let's remember Darwin and take another look at our little friends. So they have no problem with fertility and no problem with predation, but resources are limited. Some of the individuals began to use an easier way of getting food, and so were able to feed their offspring better, who in turn inherited these skills from their ancestors and then began to use them themselves. Eventually, there was no population left that had not adapted to using rocks to get food. Evolution in all its glory. Okay, there was one species of particularly clever and resourceful ape. The exceptions to the rule still don't convince. What if we told you that Capuchin monkeys aren't the only ones who've made it this far? Here's a chimpanzee from the Ivory Coast. According to archaeological digs, they started using tools even earlier than the Capuchins, around 4,000 years ago. Still the same stones and nuts, still the same technology. For the first time, scientists literally could not believe their eyes. After all, as we have said, it was thought that the use of tools was unique to Homo sapiens. Now some scientists believe that it is chimpanzees, and that their ancestors were the closest to our predecessors. Let's face it, they use tools, are easy to train, highly intelligent, have a complex social hierarchy, and even have feelings like empathy. Worthy candidates to be called brothers to our lesser selves, aren't they? Let's assume that apes have traveled some evolutionary path. But why don't they evolve into humans, or anyone remotely like us or our ancestors? Or, more importantly, why haven't they evolved? Chimpanzees and Capuchin monkeys have had the same millions of years as you and me, haven't they? So rocks are rocks. But that's not enough. The most vehement opponents of this theory of human origins might say. Fortunately, the answer to this question is very simple, and there are even two of them. First of all, the main obstacle to the evolution of animals today is man. Humans are currently the rightful masters of the planet, and as long as humans remain the dominant species on Earth, the evolution of other living things is unlikely, or will be very slow. Well, the second answer is the same one: millions of years it takes evolution to work. The lifespan of mankind, even if you count from the first cave dwellers, is a pittance against the background of the universe. A hypothetical historian recounting in 1 millions on the canal how Capuchin monkeys evolved, wiped out humans and conquered the Earth. He will say that the two Homo species evolved simultaneously, with a margin of error of no more than 500,000 years. And he would be absolutely right, because that's what we now say about species of the past. Most of the 5 or so species in the head lived at about the same time as Australopithecus, plus or minus a few 100,000 years. That's what they might share with us intelligent chimpanzees. But suppose humanity suddenly disappeared. Global cataclysm, nuclear war, relocation to another planet. Who would be the favorite? Those with high intelligence, social hierarchies, and the ability to adapt quickly would have the best chance. As well as monkeys, the main contenders for dominance on Earth will be raccoons, dogs, and bears. If, In addition to humans, all relatively large animals disappear, then rats, ants and cockroaches have all chances to reign on our planet. Separately, it is worth highlighting and octopuses, which fit under both scenarios. Some scientists believe that octopuses are the species that can make an evolutionary leap. In the coming years, these amazing creatures have large brains for their size, 8 tentacles that are far more functional than our fingers and hands, and eyes with a lens that actually give octopuses the ability to see like humans. On top of that, octopuses learn new behaviors from each other, which adds another point to their score. So you and I shouldn't lose sight of them. What do you think of today's heroes? Will primates go the way of man, or will their evolution end in books? Will someone overthrow humans from the throne of Earth? Let us know your opinion in the comments. And that's it for today. Likes, subscribe to the channel and click on the bell to not miss the release of new videos. See you soon, friends.